The alarm clock screamed at 5:30 in the morning, and Rachel's hand shot out from under the thin blanket to silence it. Her body ached. Every muscle felt like it was protesting another day of work. She'd only gotten home 3 hours ago from her night shift at the hospital, and now she had to get up and get Lily ready for school. Rachel pulled herself out of bed and walked quietly to the bathroom. Looking in the mirror, she barely recognized herself anymore. The dark circles under her eyes had become permanent residents on her face. She was only 32, but lately she felt twice that age. 2 years had passed since the accident that took her husband, and every single day since then had been a battle just to keep their heads above water. She splashed cold water on her face and headed to Lily's room. Her 8-year-old daughter was still sleeping peacefully, curled up with the stuffed rabbit her father had given her for her 6th birthday. Rachel's heart squeezed in her chest. This little girl was her whole world. Everything she did, every extra shift she took, every sacrifice she made, it was all for Lily. "Wake up, sweetheart," Rachel said softly, sitting on the edge of the small bed. "Time to get ready for school." Lily's eyes fluttered open and she smiled that beautiful smile that made all the exhaustion worth it. "Morning, Mom." They went through their usual routine. Rachel made oatmeal for breakfast while Lily got dressed. They didn't have much, but Rachel always made sure her daughter had clean clothes and a warm meal. Even if that meant Rachel herself skipped lunch sometimes to make the grocery money stretch a little further. "Mom, there's only 3 more days until Christmas," Lily said between spoonfuls of oatmeal. Her voice was full of excitement. "Can we go see Santa at the big mall like you promised, please? All my friends have been and they said it's so amazing. There are lights everywhere and Santa gives every kid a present and they take a picture and—" "I know, honey. I remember," Rachel said, forcing a smile. She'd promised Lily 2 months ago, back when things seemed more manageable, back before the car started making that terrible grinding noise. After dropping Lily at school, Rachel drove her old car to the grocery store where she worked weekend shifts as a cashier. The grinding noise was getting worse. She'd been ignoring it for weeks, hoping it would somehow magically fix itself, but deep down she knew better. During her lunch break, she finally gave in and called the mechanic. Her stomach was in knots as she waited for him to inspect the car. "Bad news, I'm afraid," the mechanic said, wiping his greasy hands on a rag. "Your transmission is going out. You need it fixed soon or this car won't be going anywhere." "How much?" Rachel asked, though she was almost afraid to hear the answer. "Parts and labor, you're looking at about $800. I can have it ready in 2 days if you give me the go-ahead." $800. Rachel felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. She had exactly $340 in her checking account. That money was supposed to cover Christmas presents for Lily, the electric bill and groceries for the next 2 weeks. She'd been so careful, planning every penny. "Can I think about it?" she asked. The mechanic nodded sympathetically. He could see the struggle written all across her face. "Sure, but don't wait too long. That transmission could go completely any day now." Rachel drove home carefully, babying the car, praying it would hold on just a little longer. Her mind was racing, trying to figure out some solution. She could ask for extra shifts, but with Christmas only 3 days away, there wasn't enough time to earn what she needed. She could try to borrow money, but from whom? Her parents had passed away years ago, and she didn't have any siblings. Her few friends were struggling just as much as she was. That evening, after picking Lily up from school and making dinner, Rachel sat at their tiny kitchen table with all their bills spread out in front of her. She had a calculator in one hand and was chewing on her thumbnail, something she only did when she was really stressed. The math was simple and brutal. Fix the car or buy Christmas presents and keep the lights on. Without the car, she couldn't get to work. Without work, they'd lose everything. But Christmas was in 3 days and she'd already bought one small gift for Lily, a book about space that her daughter had been wanting. It wasn't nearly enough. "Mom, what are you doing?" Lily appeared in the doorway wearing her pajamas. "Just paying some bills, sweetie. Nothing for you to worry about," Rachel said, quickly gathering up the papers. Lily climbed onto the chair next to her. "Are we still going to see Santa?" Rachel's heart broke into 1,000 pieces. The mall was 40 minutes away by car. The bus didn't go there, and even if it did, the bus fare for both of them plus the cost of the Santa photo would eat up money they desperately needed for other things. "Honey, I need to talk to you about that," Rachel began carefully. "The car is having some problems and is it not working?" Lily's face fell. "It's still working for now, but it needs to be fixed. And that costs money. So we might need to skip the Santa visit this year." I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Lily's eyes filled with tears and she tried so hard to be brave. That's okay, Mom, we don't have to go. I understand. But Rachel could see that she didn't really understand. How could an 8-year-old understand why life had to be so unfair? Why some kids got to see Santa in his magical workshop at the mall while others couldn't? That night, after Lily had gone to bed, Rachel made her decision. She would fix the car. They needed it. It wasn't really a choice. But that meant Christmas would be small this year. Very small. Just that one book. No trip to see Santa, no special Christmas dinner. They'd make do with what they had. She called the mechanic first thing in the morning and told him to go ahead with the repairs. He said he'd have it done by the afternoon. Rachel took the bus to work that day, and the whole time she stared out the window feeling like the worst mother in the world. When she picked Lily up from school, she could tell her daughter had been crying. "What's wrong, baby?" Rachel asked, kneeling down to Lily's level. Some kids at school were talking about what Santa's going to bring them, and they asked what I asked Santa for, and I had to tell them I'm not going to see Santa this year. A tear rolled down Lily's cheek. "Mom, do you think Santa will still find me even if I don't go to the mall?" Rachel pulled her daughter into a tight hug, fighting back her own tears. "Of course he will, sweetheart. Santa always knows where good kids are. You don't need to go to the mall." But as she said those words, she could feel Lily's disappointment. This wasn't about presents. It was about the experience, the magic, the memory, all the things Rachel wanted so desperately to give her daughter but couldn't. That night, Rachel lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The car would be ready tomorrow. She'd pick it up after work and they'd have reliable transportation again. But the look on Lily's face kept haunting her. The disappointment. The sadness. The way she'd tried so hard to be brave and understanding. Rachel had given up so much over the past 2 years. She'd given up sleep, given up her own needs, given up any kind of social life or personal time. But watching her daughter give up something that brought her joy, that was harder than all the rest combined. As she finally drifted off to sleep, exhausted and heartbroken, a small spark of an idea began forming in the back of her mind. It was crazy. It was probably impossible. But maybe, just maybe, there was a way to bring a little Christmas magic into their home after all. Rachel woke up on Christmas Eve with her crazy idea still bouncing around in her head. She'd barely slept, her mind working through the details all night long. It was ridiculous. It would never work. But she couldn't shake the image of Lily's disappointed face, and that made her willing to try just about anything. The plan was simple, at least in theory. If she couldn't take Lily to see Santa, she'd bring Santa to Lily. She'd dress up as Santa herself and create a magical experience right here in their tiny apartment. It wasn't the fancy mall setup with professional photographers and elves, but it would be something. Something special, something memorable. The problem was she didn't have a Santa costume. She didn't have decorations. She didn't have any of the things she'd need to pull this off, and she definitely didn't have the money to buy them. Rachel got Lily ready for school as usual, her mind racing the whole time. After dropping her daughter off, she sat in the parking lot of the school and pulled out her phone. She started searching online for anything that could help. Cheap Santa costumes, homemade Christmas decorations, free Christmas activities. Then she remembered old Tom from apartment 3B. Every year around the holidays, he used to dress up as Santa for the building's Christmas party. That was back when they used to have a building Christmas party, before the landlord stopped caring about things like community. Tom was retired now, spent most of his time watching game shows and feeding the pigeons on his balcony. It was worth a shot. During her lunch break at the grocery store, Rachel called Tom. Her hands were actually shaking as she waited for him to answer. "Hello?" His voice was gruff but not unfriendly. "Hi, Tom. It's Rachel from apartment 2A. I hope I'm not bothering you." "No bother at all. What can I do for you?" Rachel explained her situation, feeling embarrassed with every word. She was a grown woman asking to borrow a Santa costume, but Tom didn't laugh or make her feel foolish. "That old thing is just taking up space in my closet," he said warmly. "You're welcome to it. Come by after work and pick it up." "Thank you so much," Rachel said, relief flooding through her. "I really appreciate this." "That little girl of yours is lucky to have a mom who cares this much," Tom said. "Most kids today don't know what real love looks like." After work, Rachel stopped by Tom's apartment. He had the costume waiting for her in a plastic bag. When she opened it, her heart sank a little. The suit was old and worn. The white fur trim was yellowing in spots. The red fabric was faded, and it was huge. Tom must have been a much bigger man when he used to wear this. I know it's seen better days, Tom said apologetically, but with the right attitude, it might still work. It's perfect, Rachel lied, giving him a grateful smile. Really, thank you. Back in her car, Rachel looked at the costume and felt her confidence wavering. This was never going to work. Lily would see right through it. But then she thought about her daughter's face lighting up and she pushed those doubts aside. She had to at least try. The next challenge was decorations. Rachel drove to the dollar store and walked up and down the aisles counting every penny. She picked up a string of cheap Christmas lights, some red and green streamers, a small package of cotton batting that could work as snow, and a handful of candy canes. Total cost $14.63. She winced as she handed over the money, but it was an investment in Lily's happiness. That evening, Rachel needed to find a way to keep Lily out of the apartment while she set everything up. That's when she thought of Mrs. Park, their elderly neighbor from apartment 2C. The kind woman often invited Lily over to bake cookies or watch old movies. Of course I'll help, Mrs. Park said when Rachel explained her plan. You're a good mother doing this for your girl. I'll pick her up from school tomorrow and keep her busy until you're ready. Thank you so much, Rachel said. I don't know what I'd do without neighbors like you and Tom. Mrs. Park patted her hand. We take care of each other. That's what community means. Christmas Eve day arrived. Rachel couldn't focus at work at all. Her mind was on everything she needed to do that afternoon. She'd asked her supervisor if she could leave an hour early, and thankfully the woman had agreed. Every minute counted now. As soon as her shift ended, Rachel raced home. She had about 3 hours before Mrs. Park would bring Lily back. 3 hours to transform their plain little living room into something magical. First, she moved furniture around. The couch went against the wall. She brought in the kitchen chair and covered it with a red blanket to make a throne of sorts. She hung the streamers from the ceiling, creating a canopy effect. The Christmas lights went around the window and along the bookshelf. She used thumbtacks to hang some of Lily's drawings on the wall, the ones with Christmas trees and snowmen. The cotton batting became snow, scattered on the windowsill and around the base of their small plastic Christmas tree. She arranged the candy canes in a bowl on the coffee table. She even found some red construction paper and made a crooked sign that said, Santa's Workshop in her best handwriting. When she was done, Rachel stepped back to look at her work. It wasn't professional by any means. The lights were uneven. The streamers sagged in places. The chair throne looked exactly like what it was, a kitchen chair with a blanket on it. But in the soft glow of the Christmas lights with the decorations catching the light, it had a certain homemade charm to it. Now came the hard part. Rachel took the Santa costume into her bedroom and laid it out on the bed. The suit was definitely too big. She'd have to pin it somehow to make it fit better. The beard was attached to the hat with elastic, which was good because she wouldn't have to hold it in place. She watched several videos on her phone about how to do a Santa voice. Ho ho ho, she practiced, trying to make her voice deep and jolly. It sounded more like she had a cold than like Santa Claus, but maybe Lily wouldn't notice. Rachel put on the costume piece by piece. The pants had to be rolled at the waist and held up with a belt. The jacket hung off her shoulders like a tent. She stuffed a couch pillow inside to make herself look rounder, which helped with the fit a bit. The boots were too big, so she wore them over her sneakers. The hat kept sliding forward over her eyes. Looking in the mirror, Rachel almost laughed at herself. She looked ridiculous. The beard was crooked. The suit bunched in weird places. The pillow made her look lumpy rather than jolly. No way would this fool an 8-year-old. But then she thought about Lily and something shifted inside her. Yes, she looked ridiculous. Yes, this wasn't a professional mall Santa. But she was a mother doing everything she could to bring joy to her daughter. That had to count for something. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Park. We're about 10 minutes away. Lily is very excited. She thinks you're taking her somewhere special. Rachel's heart raced. This was it. No turning back now. She adjusted the beard one more time, practiced her ho-ho-ho once more, and positioned herself on the chair throne. She'd left the door unlocked so Mrs. Park could bring Lily straight in. Waiting in that costume in their decorated living room, Rachel felt a strange mix of emotions. She was terrified this wouldn't work. She was embarrassed at how amateurish everything looked, but underneath all that was a fierce determination. She was Lily's mother. She would move mountains if she had to, and if moving mountains meant putting on an oversized Santa suit and saying ho 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 in her tiny living room, then that's exactly what she'd do. She heard footsteps in the hallway outside. Lily's voice, bright and curious, asking Mrs. Park why they were coming to her own apartment. Rachel's palms were sweating. Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure they'd hear it through the door. The doorknob turned. The door opened slowly, and then Rachel heard the gasp. "Mom! Mom, Santa's here! Santa's in our apartment!" Lily's voice was filled with pure wonder and disbelief. Rachel stayed in character, deepening her voice. "Ho ho ho, Merry Christmas. I heard there was a very special little girl who lived here." Lily stood frozen in the doorway, her eyes wide as saucers. Mrs. Park stood behind her, a knowing smile on her face. For a long moment, Lily just stared. Rachel held her breath. Was the costume too obviously fake? Could Lily recognize her mother's eyes above the beard? Then Lily took a tentative step forward, then another, and suddenly she was running toward the chair. "You came to my house." "You really came?" Rachel felt tears stinging her eyes, but she blinked them back. She couldn't cry now. She had to be Santa. She held out her arms and Lily climbed onto her lap, careful not to knock the crooked beard. "Of course I came," Rachel said in her deepest Santa voice. "Good children deserve a visit from Santa, and I hear you've been very good this year." "I have," Lily said eagerly. "I help Mom with chores and I do my homework, and I'm nice to everyone at school." Mrs. Park waved from the doorway and quietly slipped out, closing the door behind her. Now it was just Rachel and Lily in their little makeshift winter wonderland. "Your mother tells me you're a very special girl," Rachel continued, her voice thick with emotion despite her best efforts to stay in character. Lily nodded, then looked around at the decorations. "This is so pretty. Did you do all this?" "I had some help from the elves," Rachel said. "They've been watching you all year. You know." They sat together on that chair for what felt like both an eternity and no time at all. Rachel was listening to Lily talk about her Christmas wishes when 3 sharp knocks echoed through the apartment. Her heart nearly stopped. She wasn't expecting anyone. Mrs. Park had already left. Tom never came by unannounced. "Ho ho ho, I wonder who that could be," Rachel said, staying in character but feeling panic rising in her chest. Before she could figure out what to do, the knocking came again, louder this time. "More insistent, should I get it?" Lily asked, starting to slide off Rachel's lap. No, you stay right here with Santa," Rachel said quickly. I'll just see who it is." She stood up, the 2 big Santa pants nearly sliding down as she did. She grabbed them with one hand while trying to keep the beard from falling off with the other. This was a disaster. She waddled to the door, looking through the peephole. Her blood ran cold. Standing in the hallway was Robert Chen, the property owner. She'd recognize that expensive suit and that leather briefcase anywhere. He was the man who owned not just their building, but several others in the neighborhood. She'd only seen him in person once before, about 6 months ago when he'd come to inspect some repairs. Usually he sent his property manager to deal with tenant issues. Why was he here? Why now? And why was he holding what looked like official documents? Rachel's mind raced. She was 3 weeks behind on rent. She'd been planning to catch up with her next paycheck, but that wasn't for another 4 days. She'd called the property manager last week to explain, and he'd said it would be fine, that they understood. "Had something changed, Mom?" Lily called from behind her. "Who is it? Is it one of Santa's helpers?" Rachel made a split-second decision. She couldn't open the door looking like this, but she also couldn't ignore him. If she didn't answer, he'd probably just keep knocking or come back later. And she certainly couldn't break character now, not with Lily watching. She pulled the beard up higher on her face, took a deep breath, and opened the door just a crack. Robert Chen looked surprised. No, surprised wasn't the word. He looked completely bewildered. His eyes traveled from the crooked Santa hat to the obviously fake beard, to the oversized red suit with the pillow stuffing that was starting to slip. I'm looking for Rachel Torres," he said slowly, like he wasn't sure if he was in the right place. She's not available right now," Rachel said, trying to keep her voice deep and Santa-like, while also trying to sound like herself, explaining where herself was. It came out as a weird combination that probably fooled no one. "Can I help you with something?" This was absurd. She was standing in a borrowed Santa costume that was falling apart, talking to her landlord who was probably here to evict her on Christmas Eve. "I need to speak with Ms. Torres directly," Robert said, his professional demeanor returning. "It's about her lease." Rachel's heart sank. This was it. The eviction notice. On Christmas Eve, while she was dressed as Santa, while her daughter sat 10 feet away waiting for Christmas magic. Is that Santa's helper? Lily's voice rang out cheerfully. Before Rachel could stop her, her daughter had appeared at her side, looking up at Robert with curious eyes. "Are you here to help Santa?" Robert looked down at Lily, then back at Rachel in her ridiculous costume, and something flickered across his face. Confusion, maybe, or was it understanding? For the first time since arriving, the businessman seemed uncertain. Rachel saw Mrs. Park's door open across the hall. The elderly woman took in the scene, her eyes widening. She quickly crossed the hallway, putting a gentle hand on Lily's shoulder. "Oh my goodness," Mrs. Park said, thinking fast. "You must be Santa's very important helper. I've heard so much about you. Can you come inside for just a moment? Santa needs to discuss some very special North Pole business with you." She gently guided Lily back into the apartment before the girl could ask more questions. "Why don't you show me all these beautiful decorations while Santa talks with his helper?" Once Lily was distracted, Mrs. Park gave Rachel a significant look and quietly closed the door most of the way, leaving it open just a crack. Now Rachel and Robert stood in the hallway alone. Rachel slowly removed the beard, letting it hang around her neck. There was no point in pretending anymore. "Mr. Chen, I can explain," she started. "You're 3 weeks behind on rent," he said, but his voice wasn't as harsh as she'd expected. He actually sounded tired. "I'm here to deliver notices to several tenants in this building who are behind on payments. Company policy requires formal notification before we proceed with eviction proceedings." The word eviction hit Rachel like a physical blow. "Please, I have the money coming. My paycheck is in 4 days. I know I should have paid on time, but my car broke down, and the repair cost more than I expected, and I'm not interested in excuses. Ms. Torres, I have a business to run." "It's not an excuse," Rachel said, her voice breaking slightly. She was still wearing the Santa costume, which made this whole conversation even more surreal. "I work 2 jobs. I'm doing everything I can. I just need a few more days." Robert looked at her, really looked at her. The dark circles under her eyes, the way the oversized costume hung on her thin frame, the desperation in her voice. "Why are you dressed like that?" he asked. Rachel felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. "My daughter wanted to see Santa at the mall. We couldn't afford to go, couldn't even get there with the car being broken. So I borrowed this costume and tried to give her something special here at home. I know it's ridiculous. I know it looks stupid, but it's all I can do right now." Inside the apartment, they could hear Lily laughing at something Mrs. Park was saying. The sound was pure joy, innocent and sweet. "How old is your daughter?" Robert asked. 8. Her name is Lily. Her father died 2 years ago in a car accident. It's just the 2 of us now." Robert was quiet for a long moment, his hand still holding the envelope with her eviction notice. Rachel could see other envelopes in his briefcase, notices for other families. This was just business to him. Just another day of paperwork and policy enforcement. "Mr. Chen, please," Rachel said, abandoning all pride. "I'm begging you. Give me until after Christmas. I'll have the money by then. Every penny I owe plus late fees if you want. Just don't do this now. Not on Christmas Eve. Not in front of my daughter." "Company policy is clear," he said, but there was less conviction in his voice now. "I understand you have policies. I understand I broke the rules by being late. But I'm asking you, one human being to another, please give me a chance to make this right." Before Robert could respond, Lily's voice called out, Santa? Can your helper come inside? Mrs. Park made hot chocolate and we have enough for everyone." Rachel closed her eyes briefly. Of course, Lily would invite him in. Her kind, generous daughter who had no idea they were about to lose their home. "You don't have to," Rachel started to say to Robert, but something had changed in his expression. He looked at the Santa costume Rachel was wearing, at the crack in the door where a warm light and the smell of hot chocolate was seeping out, at the sound of a child's laughter. "Actually," he said slowly, "maybe I could come in for just a moment." Rachel was stunned. You want to come in? If that's all right with you." He looked uncomfortable, like he was doing something completely out of character for himself. Rachel opened the door wider, and they stepped into the small living room together. Lily was sitting on the couch with Mrs. Park, holding a mug of hot chocolate. When she saw them, her face lit up. "You came in. Are you really Santa's helper?" Lily asked Robert. Robert looked at Rachel, clearly unsure how to handle this situation. Rachel gave a tiny nod, still in shock that he was here, that he hadn't just handed her the eviction notice and left. "Yes," Robert heard himself saying. "I work with Santa to make sure everything runs smoothly." "That's so cool. What do you do?" I check on families. Make sure they have what they need. That sort of thing." Mrs. Park handed Robert a mug of hot chocolate, her expression unreadable. She'd clearly been listening to the hallway conversation and understood exactly what was happening. Rachel sat back down on the chair throne, pulling the beard back into place. Her hands were shaking. Any moment now, Robert could change his mind, hand her that envelope and shatter this fragile moment of Christmas magic. But instead, he sat down on the other end of the couch, holding his hot chocolate like he wasn't quite sure what to do with it. "Santa," Lily said, turning her attention back to Rachel. "I was just telling Mrs. Park about my Christmas wishes." "Were you now?" Rachel said, forcing cheerfulness into her Santa voice. "And what did you wish for?" Lily took a sip of her hot chocolate, leaving a chocolate mustache on her upper lip. "Well, I wished for a new book, but that's not the most important thing." "What's the most important thing?" Robert asked before he could stop himself. Lily looked at him seriously, far too seriously for an 8-year-old. "I wish that my mom could stop being so sad. She cries sometimes at night when she thinks I'm sleeping. And I wished our car would work right again so Mom doesn't have to worry about it. And I wished—" She paused, her eyes getting shiny with tears. "And I wished we could stay in our apartment," Lily continued, her voice getting smaller. "I heard Mom talking on the phone last week about the rent. I know we're in trouble. I'm not supposed to know, but I do." Rachel felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. She hadn't realized Lily knew anything about their financial struggles. She'd tried so hard to shield her daughter from all of it. Robert shifted uncomfortably on the couch, looking down at his expensive shoes on their worn carpet. The hot chocolate sat untouched in his hands. "Sweetheart," Rachel said, her Santa voice cracking. "You don't need to worry about grown-up things like that." "But I do worry," Lily said, tears spilling down her cheeks now. "I hear you crying, Mom. I know you work all the time and you're so tired. I know we don't have much money. And I just wish things could be easier for you." Mrs. Park handed Lily a tissue, her own eyes glistening with tears. "You know what I really want for Christmas?" Lily said, looking right at Rachel in her Santa costume. "I want my mom to be happy. That's all. I don't need toys or games. I just want her to smile for real again, not the fake smile she does when she's worried." Rachel couldn't hold back her tears anymore. They streamed down her face, soaking into the fake white beard. She pulled it off completely and knelt down in front of her daughter. "Lily, I'm so sorry you've been carrying this weight," she said, her voice breaking. "You're just a child. You should be thinking about toys and games, not about rent and bills." "But we're a team, Mom," Lily said, throwing her arms around Rachel's neck. "It's just you and me. We're supposed to take care of each other." Robert stood up abruptly, walking over to the window. He stared out at the street below, his back to the room. His jaw was clenched tight and his hands had balled into fists at his sides. Mrs. Park watched him carefully, then looked at Rachel with a knowing expression. Something was happening here, something shifting in the air. "Lily," Mrs. Park said gently, "why don't you come help me in the kitchen? I think we have some Christmas cookies that need decorating." "But," Lily started. "Come on, dear. Let's give your mom and Santa's helper a moment to talk about official North Pole business." Lily reluctantly followed Mrs. Park to the small kitchen area, though she kept looking back over her shoulder. Rachel stood up slowly, still wearing most of the Santa costume. She felt exposed, vulnerable, like all her failures as a mother had just been laid bare in front of a stranger, and not just any stranger, but the man who held their future in his hands. "Mr. Chen," she began. "How old was she when her father died?" Robert asked, still facing the window. 6, it was a drunk driver. He was just going to the grocery store. Rachel's voice was hollow. She'd told this story so many times to social workers, to insurance companies, to well-meaning friends, but it never got easier. "And you've been doing this alone for 2 years? Working 2 jobs?" Raising her by yourself? What choice did I have? She's my daughter. I do whatever it takes. Robert turned around finally, and Rachel was surprised to see emotion in his eyes. This cold businessman who'd come to evict her on Christmas Eve suddenly looked like a completely different person. Do you know why I came here personally today? He asked. Rachel shook her head. Because I'm tired. I'm tired of being the villain. I'm tired of making money hand over fist while families struggle. I'm tired of enforcing policies that make perfect business sense but destroy people's lives. He laughed bitterly. I have 7 apartment buildings. Hundreds of units. My net worth is somewhere in the millions, and I spend Christmas Eve delivering eviction notices. He walked over to his briefcase and pulled out not just Rachel's envelope, but several others. You know what these are? Families. Real people with real problems and real children, and I'm about to make their Christmas a nightmare because they're behind on rent. Because business is business, right? That's what my father taught me. Profit over people always. I don't understand, Rachel said quietly. My father built this real estate empire. When he died 5 years ago, I inherited everything. I was supposed to carry on his legacy, run things his way. Be tough, be ruthless. Don't let emotions cloud business decisions. Robert sat back down on the couch, suddenly looking exhausted. And I have been. For 5 years, I've been exactly what he wanted me to be. Cold, efficient, profitable. He looked up at Rachel. But then I knock on a door on Christmas Eve, and a woman answers dressed as Santa because she's trying to give her daughter one moment of magic, even though she's drowning in debt. And that daughter wishes for her mother's happiness instead of toys, and I realize I've become everything I never wanted to be. The room was quiet except for the sound of Lily and Mrs. Park talking softly in the kitchen, and the gentle hum of the cheap Christmas lights Rachel had strung up. I had a sister once, Robert said suddenly. Younger than me by 8 years. Her name was Sophie. She died when she was 7. Cancer. I'm so sorry, Rachel said, sitting down across from him. My mother was like you. She did everything for Sophie. Drove her to treatments. Sat with her through the pain. Read her stories. Made her laugh even when she was so sick. She dressed up as characters from Sophie's favorite books to make her smile. She gave everything she had. His voice broke. But it wasn't enough. Sophie died anyway. And my mother never recovered. She became a shell of herself. Mr. Chen. After Sophie died, my father buried himself in work. He said feelings were weakness. He said the only thing that mattered was building something that would last. Making money. Creating security. He turned into a machine, and he wanted me to be one too. Robert looked down at the envelopes in his hands. I've spent 5 years becoming my father, and I thought I was doing the right thing, being strong. Building the business. But watching your daughter just now, hearing what she wished for, it reminded me of Sophie, of my mother, of everything I lost when I stopped being human and started being a businessman. Rachel didn't know what to say. This man had come here to evict her, and now he was opening up about his deepest pain. Your daughter said she wanted you to be happy, Robert continued. Do you know what Sophie wished for at the end? She wished for my mother to smile again. She was dying. And she was worried about my mother, 7 years old. Tears were running down his face now, and he didn't bother to wipe them away. I've spent 5 years convinced that my father's way was right, that sentiment and compassion were weaknesses, that profit margins were more important than people. But you know what? I'm miserable. I have everything my father wanted me to have, and I'm absolutely miserable. He stood up and walked over to where Rachel was sitting. Ms. Torres, I came here to give you an eviction notice. That was my plan. Follow company policy. Do what my father would have done. Rachel held her breath. But I can't do it, Robert said firmly. I won't do it. Not to you. Not to your daughter. Not to any of these families. He took the stack of envelopes and in one swift motion tore them in half. Rachel gasped. What are you doing? Something I should have done years ago. I'm choosing to be human instead of being a businessman. I'm choosing compassion over policy. He looked at her intently. You don't owe rent for this month. Consider it forgiven, and I'm going to go through my entire portfolio and do the same for every family that's struggling. I can't accept that, Rachel said. Even though everything in her wanted to. I can pay. I just need a few more days. I know you can pay. That's not the point. The point is you shouldn't have to choose between fixing your car and giving your daughter Christmas. The point is that a woman like you, working 2 jobs, being an amazing mother, Shouldn't be 3 weeks from homelessness. He pulled out his phone and started typing. What's the name of the mechanic who fixed your car? I don't understand, just tell me. Tony's Auto Repair on 5th Street. But why? Robert made a call, putting it on speaker. After a few rings, a man answered. Tony's Auto. This is Robert Chen. You recently did transmission work for Rachel Torres. Yeah, she picked it up yesterday. Why? I'm sending you payment for that repair right now, plus a tip for good work. Consider her bill paid in full. Wait, what? Sir, that's $800. I'm aware. Robert was typing on his phone as he spoke. Rachel woke up on Christmas morning with the strangest feeling. For a moment, she thought last night had been a dream. Robert Chen tearing up eviction notices. Him paying for her car repair. Him sitting in her tiny living room crying about his sister. It couldn't have been real. But when she walked into the living room, there was Lily, already awake and staring at their small Christmas tree. Under it was the book Rachel had bought weeks ago, wrapped in newspaper because she couldn't afford wrapping paper. And next to it was an envelope. Mom, look, Santa left something, Lily said, bouncing with excitement. Rachel's heart started racing. She picked up the envelope. Her name was written on it in neat handwriting. Inside was a letter and what looked like a check. Her hands shook as she unfolded the letter. Dear Rachel, it began. I left after you went to put Lily to bed because I didn't want to intrude on your Christmas Eve any longer. But I wanted to leave you something. The check is for 12 months of rent paid in advance. Before you refuse it, please understand that this isn't charity. This is me trying to be a better person. This is me honoring my sister's memory by helping a mother who reminds me of my own mother at her best. Rachel's eyes blurred with tears as she kept reading. I also wanted to offer you a job. I need someone to manage the residential services for my properties. Someone who understands what tenants are going through. Someone with compassion and strength. Someone exactly like you. The position comes with a salary that's 3 times what you're making at your 2 current jobs combined, plus full health insurance and benefits. If you're interested, please call me after the holidays. The letter continued with more details about the job, his personal phone number, and a final paragraph that made Rachel completely break down. Your daughter taught me something important last night. She showed me that real wealth isn't measured in bank accounts or property deeds. It's measured in love and sacrifice and showing up for the people who matter even when it's hard. You're richer than I've ever been, Rachel. Thank you for reminding me what truly matters. Merry Christmas, Robert. Rachel sat down hard on the couch, the letter clutched in her hand. The check fluttered to the floor. Lily picked it up. Mom, there's a lot of numbers on this paper, she said, studying it. What does it mean? It means, Rachel said, pulling her daughter into a tight hug, that Santa's helper is a very good man. It means we're going to be okay. More than okay. Can we stay in our apartment? Yes, baby. We can stay. Lily squealed with joy and threw her arms around Rachel's neck. They sat like that for a long time, holding each other, both crying happy tears. Later that morning, after Lily had opened her one present and was happily reading her new book, Rachel called the number Robert had left. He answered on the second ring. Merry Christmas, he said warmly. You didn't have to do all this, Rachel said, her voice thick with emotion. I know, but I wanted to. How's Lily? She's perfect. She's reading the book I got her. She has no idea about the check or the job offer. She just knows that Santa's helper was very kind to us. Good. That's good. There was a pause. Rachel, I meant what I said in that letter. About the job. I know it's a lot to process right now, but I really do need someone like you. Someone who understands what it's like to struggle. Someone who can help me turn my properties into real homes for families instead of just revenue. Sources. I don't have any management experience, Rachel said hesitantly. You've been managing your entire life on a shoestring budget while working 2 jobs and raising a child alone. I'd say you're more qualified than most people who have fancy degrees and no real-world experience. Rachel laughed through her tears. When would you need me to start? Whenever you're ready. Take time to give proper notice at your current jobs. Get settled. This isn't going anywhere. They talked for a few more minutes about the details. The job would be mostly daytime hours. There was an office, but she could work from home when needed. She'd be handling tenant relations, coordinating maintenance, and helping to develop programs to support struggling families. I'm also setting up a fund, Robert said. a hardship fund for tenants who fall on difficult times. I should have done it years ago. You'll help me manage that too. After they hung up, Rachel sat in silence for a moment, just processing everything. 24 hours ago, she'd been facing eviction. She'd been exhausted, scared, and out of options. She'd put on a borrowed Santa suit as a last-ditch effort to give her daughter one moment of joy. And somehow, that desperate act of love had changed everything. Mrs. Park knocked on the door mid-morning carrying a plate of fresh cookies. "Merry Christmas, dear. I wanted to check on you and Lily." "Come in, please," Rachel said, hugging the older woman. "Thank you for everything you did last night." "I don't know what I would have done without you." Mrs. Park waved her hand dismissively. "I didn't do anything special. But that Mr. Chen, now that was something. Tom and I were talking about it this morning. Never seen anything like it. He paid our rent for a year," Rachel said quietly. "And he offered me a job. A real job with benefits and everything." Mrs. Park's eyes widened. "Well, I'll be. Seems like Christmas miracles do happen after all. I still can't believe it's real." "Believe it, sweetheart. You deserve it. You've been fighting so hard for so long. It's about time something good happened for you." The rest of Christmas Day passed in a blur of happiness. Rachel and Lily made a simple dinner with what they had in the kitchen. They watched Christmas movies. They played games. And for the first time in 2 years, Rachel felt something she'd almost forgotten: hope. That evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Rachel sat alone in the living room with the cheap Christmas lights still twinkling. She thought about everything that had happened, about how close they'd come to losing everything, about the Santa costume that had started it all. Her phone buzzed. A text from Robert. "I've been thinking about what you said last night, about being a team with your daughter, about taking care of each other. I spent 5 years isolating myself, pushing people away, but I think I'm ready to let people in again. Thank you for that." Rachel smiled and texted back, "Thank you for seeing us, for really seeing us. Not many people do. I see you now, and I see how strong you are, how much you love your daughter, how you never gave up even when you had every reason to. That kind of strength is rare." Over the next few weeks, Rachel gave notice at both her jobs. Her supervisors were sorry to see her go, but happy for her new opportunity. She started her new position in mid-January, and it was everything Robert had promised. The work was challenging but fulfilling. She was helping real people, making real differences in their lives. Robert became a regular presence in their lives, but not in an intrusive way. He'd stop by sometimes to discuss work matters, and he'd always bring something for Lily: a book, a puzzle, a small toy. He never overstepped, never tried to replace her father. He was just a kind man who cared about their well-being. One day in February, Lily came home from school excited about a project. "We have to write about someone who changed our lives," she said. "I'm writing about Santa's helper." "Are you?" Rachel asked, smiling. "Yeah. I'm going to write about how he came on Christmas Eve and helped Santa make everything better. My teacher says real heroes are the people who help when nobody's watching." Rachel felt tears prick her eyes. "Your teacher is very wise." That night, after Lily was asleep, Rachel pulled out the old Santa costume. She'd washed it and folded it neatly, planning to return it to Tom. But as she held it, she thought about that Christmas Eve, about how scared she'd been, about how ridiculous she'd felt, about how desperately she'd wanted to give her daughter just one moment of magic. She'd had no idea that moment would change everything, that her simple act of love would touch someone's heart so deeply, that her borrowed Santa costume would lead to a new job, a new friend, and a new life for her and Lily. Rachel carefully packed the costume away in a box, but she didn't return it to Tom. Instead, she kept it. Not because she needed it anymore, but as a reminder that sometimes the smallest acts of love can have the biggest impacts. That being vulnerable and asking for help isn't weakness, it's courage. That kindness can come from the most unexpected places. She wrote a note and tucked it in the box with the costume. "The night I wore this, I was at my lowest point. I felt like a failure, but I put it on anyway because my daughter's joy mattered more than my pride. That night, I learned that love is the most powerful magic there is. This costume doesn't fit. The beard is crooked. The pants are too big, but it changed our lives. Never underestimate the power of showing up for the people you love, even when you feel inadequate, especially when you feel inadequate." Months passed. Spring came, then summer. Rachel and Lily moved to a bigger apartment in one of Robert's nicer buildings, one he insisted they take at the same rent they'd been paying before. Lily made new friends. Rachel thrived in her job, helping dozens of families avoid the fate she'd almost suffered. Robert started therapy to deal with his grief over his sister. He began visiting his mother again after years of distance. He completely restructured his business model, prioritizing tenant well-being alongside profits. Some of his business associates thought he'd lost his mind. His accountant had a small heart attack when Robert announced the hardship fund. But Robert didn't care. He was happy for the first time in years. On Christmas Eve, almost exactly 1 year later, there was a knock on Rachel's new apartment door. She opened it to find Robert standing there holding a wrapped present. "Merry Christmas," he said with a smile. "You didn't have to get us anything," Rachel said, but she was smiling too. "I know, but I wanted to." He handed her the present. "It's for both of you." Rachel opened it carefully. Inside was a professional photograph beautifully framed. It showed Rachel in the Santa costume, Lily on her lap, both of them smiling. Mrs. Park must have taken it on her phone that night. "How did you—" Rachel started. "I asked Mrs. Park if she had any pictures from that night. She sent me this one. I had it professionally enhanced and framed." "I hope that's okay." Rachel stared at the photo. She looked exhausted in it. The costume obviously ill-fitting, the decorations clearly homemade. But the love in her eyes as she looked at Lily was unmistakable. And Lily's joy was radiant, pure and real. "It's perfect," Rachel said softly. "I have a copy for myself too," Robert admitted. "I keep it in my office. On the hard days when I'm tempted to fall back into old patterns, I look at it. It reminds me why I changed. It reminds me what really matters." Lily came running out squealing when she saw Robert. "You came. Mom, can he stay for dinner, please?" Rachel looked at Robert, who shrugged with a smile. "If I'm not intruding?" "You could never intrude," Rachel said warmly. "You're family now." And he was. Not in the traditional sense, but in the way that mattered most. He was someone who showed up, someone who cared, someone who had been transformed by witnessing a mother's love for her child.